up in Wikipedia. The deliberate termination of a human pregnancy most often performed during the first 28 weeks. And abortion is legal through 24 to 26 weeks in the United States. If a woman wants to get an abortion at 26 weeks, she needs 2 doctors to be like, yes, you can do this. Planned Parenthood says that abortion is the safe and legal way to end a pregnancy. The National Abortion Federation says there are 2 types of abortion. There's a medical abortion, which is brought about by taking medications, and it will end a pregnancy. Then there's the alternative, surgical abortion, and it'll end a pregnancy by emptying the uterus with special instruments. But if you go to these pro-choice websites, and if you talk to pro-choicers, you'll notice that abortion is brought to light in the abstract. So the pro-choicers will say, yeah, take some snacks, take some coffee, write your name on a tag. We like to know your names. If you go to a pro-choice website, you'll notice that abortion is displayed in the abstract. So they'll say things like, it ends a pregnancy. We're emptying the uterus. Maybe they'll say fetus, we're emptying the uterus of the fetus. But they never really tell you what abortion is. So they'll say, the pregnancy, fetus. Some will even say, whatever is inside of the woman is a parasite, a clump of cells, just tissue. Then you have another group, and this other group says, no, it's human life. It's a little one, an offspring, an image bearer of God, a child, a baby. And the pro-choicers say, well, look, abortion is our reproductive freedom. It's a right for all women, a reproductive justice for every woman in America. And I actually got this from a pro-choice website. From abortion rights to social justice, building the movement for reproductive freedom. So we have many people who believe that abortion is reproductive freedom. This is from fundabortionnow.org. They say, their organization is give money to us to fund abortion. They have to say, well, we're part of reproductive justice. It encompasses social justice, anti-racism, human rights, all aspects of reproductive health care, economic justice, parenting rights, and anti-poverty work. And then reproductive justice is, in its simplest terms, a person's right to create and parent the family she wants, when she wants it, under the conditions and in the community she chooses. So in other words, nobody has the right to tell a woman if she's going to be a mother. If she's pregnant, it is her reproductive right, her reproductive justice to choose if she's going to start a family. So this leads us into the question, well, when does human life begin? I just want to make a disclaimer, there are going to be graphic images in this. We, as a society and as human beings, relate to images. When we think of the Holocaust, we think of the Jews who were starved. When we think of human slavery, we think of how they treated the Negroes. When we think of Jesus being crucified, we think of the thorns, we think of him being whipped, we think of him on the cross. He bore our sins in his body. And so that's why it's important to, when we talk about abortion, to also use graphic images. I tell people when I go out and talk about abortion, look, it is a scientific fact that human life begins at the moment of conception. You can open up any biology textbook and it will tell you this. Here we have the developing human. Human development begins at fertilization, the process during which a male gamete or sperm unites with a female gamete to form a single cell called a zygote. This highly specialized cell marks the beginning of each of us as a unique individual. So when this process happens, an individual comes into being which has never existed before and which will never exist again. That's what unique is. You are unique. There's nobody like When does life begin? Every time the sperm cell and ovum unite, a new being is created which is alive and will continue to live unless its death is brought about by some specific condition. And even National Geographic says the two cells gradually and gracefully become one. This is the moment of conception, when an individual's unique set of DNA is created, a human signature that never existed before and will never be repeated. Dr. Jerome Lejeune, he's also known as the father of modern genetics, says after fertilization has taken place, a new human being has come into being. It is no longer a matter of taste or opinion, it is plain experimental evidence. Each individual has a very neat beginning at conception. And a professor at Mayo Clinic says, by all the criteria of modern molecular biology, life is present from the moment of conception. Bernard Nathanson co-founded one of the most influential abortion advocacy groups in the world and once served as a medical director for the largest abortion clinic in America. He eventually became a Roman Catholic. He says, there is simply no doubt that even the early embryo is a human being. All its genetic coding and all its features are indisputably human. As to being, there is no doubt that it exists, is alive, is self-directed, and is not the same being as the mother, and is therefore a unified whole. Then we have even pro-choicers know. We have the chief executive of the largest independent abortion provider in the UK said this in a 2008 debate. We can accept that the embryo is a living thing, and the fact that it has a beating heart, that it has its own genetic system within it, it's clearly human in the sense that it's not a gerbil or gerbil, and we can recognize that it is human life. So we can all say that we have all been here. We have all been here. Even Jesus was here. So knowing now that abortion, or at the moment life begins at the moment of conception, the deliberate termination of a human being. Because when you go to pro-choice websites, they say, well, it's the termination of a pregnancy, it'll end a pregnancy. But knowing what is actually happening, what is actually in the mother's womb, it's the deliberate termination of a human being. Abortion is a safe and legal way to end the life of a human being. A medical abortion is one that is brought about by taking medications that will end the life of a human being. The alternative is a surgical abortion, which ends the life of a human being by emptying the uterus with special instruments. National Abortion Federation. So do you see how they do not tell you, or these women who are seeking abortion, who go to Planned Parenthood, they do not tell them that they're ending the life of a human being. Instead, they use abstract terms like the pregnancy. Fetus. So we can say that abortion does not end a pregnancy. Birth ends a pregnancy. Abortion kills a baby during pregnancy. What does the Bible say? Genesis 1:26-27. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Genesis 9:6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. So we see that we are not like the creatures of the earth. And I don't know if you're on the creation email, but I wrote on there how mankind is unique. We're distinct. God has even given us some of his attributes, such as holiness, immortality. We can have eternal life. We can have a relationship with God. We know how to love. We're originally created. We know how to communicate with each other, different than the animals. These are reflections of God's image. And so, mankind is made in the image of God. And God sees mankind more valuable than my cat or my dog. To the point where he says, if you shed man's blood, your blood's going to be required of you. For in the image of God, he made man. And a lot of you are familiar with this verse, Psalm 139, 13 through 14. For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. So here we have God is even involved in the fetal development process. You have David saying that God knew him when he was in his mother's womb. And so we have the scientists know life begins at the moment of conception. We have pro-choicers know it. And we have the Bible, which says that humans are distinct. And that God even knew David in his mother's womb. And there's other verses too in Job that say, Job says something similar to that. Isaiah 44:24. Thus says the Lord, your Redeemer, and the one who formed you from the womb. I, the Lord, am the maker of all things, stretching out the heavens by myself, spreading out the earth all alone. So we can say we are fearfully and wonderfully made. We are not just an animal. We're not just a creature. We're created in God's image. And atheists and evolutionists cannot say this, that they're fearfully and wonderfully made. Oh, disclaimer. Look away if you don't want to see this. But this is the reality. Abortion is therefore murder. But yet, these women say it's a health issue. Protect women's health. And they'll even go as far to say, look, men cannot speak on this issue because men can't get pregnant. So, therefore, yeah, that's their logic. This is their logic. 77% of anti-abortion leaders are men. 100% of them will never be pregnant. Who can just point something that's wrong with that out for me? Does anybody see that and think, that's not... What do you guys think?
Well, most percentages, it's like a roll of the dice.
Percentages, okay.
Yeah, percentages are kind of quasi.
Is there anything else you think?
Well, the one thing I think about is that it says 100% of them will never get pregnant, but it takes the man to get the woman pregnant.
Yeah.
That sounds very feministic, that statement.
Okay. And that.
There's we also need a statement in here as to what percentage of abortions are pushed by the men rather than the women.
Yeah, so this is actually a form of ad hominem. In logic, there's ad hominem, and they don't deal with the argument itself, and they attack the individual. So here you have the pro-choicers attacking the male gender. You know, arguments don't have genders. And if you were to substitute something else for that, you would see how ludicrous it is. Because I said at the beginning that we're going to compare slavery to abortion. 77% of anti-slavery leaders are Northerners. 100% of them will never own a plantation. So, you see how ridiculous that is. And that's on like a very popular pro-choice website. But they still maintain we need to keep it legal. And to the point that they say, look, this is a war on women. That you want to take this right from us. We demand choice. Stop the war on women. Every human has the right to choose what's right for them. It's moral relativism at its finest right there. Bad picture. How can the right to murder another human being be a human right? Women's rights should begin at conception. So we're just going to look over fetal development really quick. You hear the term fetus. fetus means offspring or little one in Latin, so don't shy away from the word fetus. You can even use it against the pro-choicers and say, look, it means a little one, it means offspring. Is it a giraffe offspring? No, it's a human offspring. Development of the fetus or offspring. Disclaimer, while human development is amazing, the following is not what makes a fetus a person. It is not the reason abortion is wrong. So, we have at 18 days after conception, the baby's heart is beating. 21 days, the heart begins to pump baby's own blood through a closed circulatory system. And that's important. The baby can have a different blood type than the mother. You always hear, my body, my choice. You have 2 different blood types? 28 days, eyes, ears, tongue, and the respiratory system begin to form. 42 days, brain waves recorded. Skeleton complete, reflexes are present. At 7 weeks, baby can suck her thumb.
What about the boy?
He or she. If I say he or she, it's just because I don't want to use the word it. So, 8 weeks, all body systems are present. 9 weeks, he can squint, swallow, move his tongue, and make a fist. 11 weeks, spontaneous breathing movements, has fingernails, all body systems working. 12 weeks, weighs 1 ounce. And this is where the most abortions occur at this stage. 16 weeks, genital organs clearly differentiated, grafted hands, swims, kicks, turns, somersaults, still not felt by the mother. 18 weeks, vocal cords work, and it can cry. He or she can cry. 20 weeks, has hair on head, weighs 1 pound, 12 inches long. And abortion is legal up to 24 weeks. And then there are states that will do it into the 3rd trimester. So we can tell our pro-choice friends, at least get your facts straight. Not a parasite, not a body part. He or she is a person, and that's a 9-week-old human fetus. So the world dehumanizes people in order to justify their destruction. So they will say things like fetus, tissue, clump of cells, well, we're going to end the pregnancy, parasite, etc. And in Nazi Germany, they did this. This is propaganda from the Nazis that were put out about Hitler. Look, he looks so nice, huh? And they dehumanized the Jews, and they said that they were an inferior race. They blamed them for the war and their economic problems, and their social problems. They put out all this propaganda about them and to dehumanize them. And they ended up justifying their destruction because of that. The civil rights. The Negro is not a human being. And today they say the fetus is not a human being. I didn't include this picture in the presentation. I must have forgot. But there is a case called Dred Scott. And Dred was a slave, and he was actually in the North during that time was free, and the South was not free. Slavery was legal in the 1800s. And so Dred, this man, he wanted to be free, and he wanted the same rights as everybody else, and he was actually in the North. But then a judge actually said, no, you do not have the same rights as white people. And so here they were recognized they were not equal. In fact, they were not even human beings, they thought. Because the world dehumanizes people in order to justify their destruction. So when we talk about abortion, this is what we're talking about. The body inside of the woman's body is not her body. And if young women would just realize this, I think that there would be less abortions. But instead, it's just put in the abstract, called a choice, called a reproductive right. Call it whatever you want. This is what it is. And you look at this, and immediately you think, this is wrong. So it's not a clump of cells, it's not a parasite, it's not tissue. This is not health care. So here's the problem. Abortion cannot be a reproductive right. Reproduction has already taken place. Abortion is therefore murder. So who can tell me when life begins? You have to raise your hand. How do we know? How do we know life begins at conception? Nobody knows when life begins. It's a scientific fact. Anybody else? How do we know when life begins?
The Bible says.
What does the Bible say?
It says it begins, he knit us together in our womb, in our mother's womb.
Fearfully and wonderfully made, alright. Anybody else? What about in Genesis? The book of Genesis. Please, we're getting
In the image of God.
We're made in the image of God. You already got one. Okay. Yeah, the scientific fact that life begins at the moment of conception. So the unborn differs from the newborn in 4 ways. Here we go. We're going to have an acronym. Some of you probably be familiar with this. It's called the SLED acronym. I don't have a way to remember that. SLED, sledding down. We don't have snow in San Diego, so we wish that we could sled down a hill with snow. So the pro-choicers, what this is going to be, the pro-choicers, usually what they'll say about the fetus, the little one, the human baby, will fall into one of these 4 letters or categories. A lot of times they won't even talk about the fetus, and they'll say something way off, and they try to get you sidetracked, like who's going to take care of the baby? Well, we can talk about that, but we're talking about whether or not it's wrong right now. So pro-choicers like to discriminate against the fetus by its size or physical appearance. They'll say that does not look like a human being, therefore it's not a human being. Logic fail. What about people who are deformed? Human value transcends physical appearance. That's like ethnic cleansing, where they want to destroy people or make a cleaner race, and they have certain characteristics because of that. Are we going to discriminate against people because of their size? In that case, I would be, eliminated because I'm pretty short. Level of development. The unborn doesn't have the same abilities as real persons or people. Let's go back. Level of development. The unborn doesn't have the same abilities as real persons. And does anybody see anything wrong with that? Look, that fetus doesn't have the same ability as you do. Therefore, it's not a person.
It's got different blood.
June? Oh, yeah.
I would say that unborn has all the abilities of a human being at that age.
JD?
Well, I can see that a child up to 5 couldn't survive on its own, so we should be able to abort them until they're 5 years old.
Exactly. A lot of the things that the pro-choicers say about a fetus, to dehumanize it, you can apply to children, you can apply to me, you can apply to, they're irrational.
Hannah, there's one saying, well, if you want to abort the baby inside you, why not abort, just kill your 2-year-old and keep the one inside you?
Right. What's the difference between the 2-year-old
Right.
and the fetus? An environment or location. They'll discriminate against the fetus because they're in the mother's womb. And so I say, well, if I was to walk here to the bathroom, does that change my identity? I'm still me. So my environment does not determine who I am. Degree of dependency. The unborn is too physically dependent on others to be a person. It's not viable and can't survive outside the womb. So That's like what JD said. Well, a toddler is dependent upon his mother also. Does that mean that we should murder toddlers now? Babies, toddlers, children, physically dependent persons are at risk then if this is your criteria for murdering a human being. Humans are valuable before they are viable. So in the United States, it's legal till they're viable. That's 24 weeks. They can live outside the womb with some medical assistance. But I'm saying humans are valuable before they are viable. So abortion should be outlawed from the moment of conception. Nearly all abortions take place in the first trimester when a fetus... Okay, so this is an abortion argument. We're going to see how well you guys do. Here we go. I'm a pro-choicer. Nearly all that's how they talk. Nearly all abortions take place in the first trimester when a fetus cannot exist independent of the mother, as it is attached by the placenta and umbilical cord. Its health is dependent on her health, and it cannot exist outside her womb. So therefore, they can kill it. They don't ever have a therefore. They just say stuff like that. What do you think? Does this mean that we should abort children? Because, what do you think?
I just work for the Home Body Plans, and some of our patients were adults, but they had the mind and the mentality of 6 months old.
Right.
So we let them live.
Right. And that's a good point, too. Does that mean that we should just murder disabled people? Stevie.
If we took any person here, placed them in Antarctica, have them a little shelter, and they're completely dependent on the shelter. Because they're completely dependent on that shelter and will die if we just set them out there, does that mean we should be able to kill them?
Right.
Same situation for a baby. If we take it out of its environment into a hostile environment and it can't survive, why should we be surprised?
Yep. So that would fall under the degree of dependency. A woman's body belongs to herself, and she should be free to do what she deems necessary for her body and overall health in any situation. So abortion should be legal because of this. Something wrong? A woman's body belongs to herself. Alma.
How could a woman's body carry another entity within her with a different blood type?
Right. That's a good answer.
That's a good answer. Brett.
Suicide is illegal, so I mean, if you follow the logic of I can do whatever I want with my body, then shouldn't you be able to commit suicide?
Right.
Yeah.
So we cannot do whatever we want with our own body.
She's not asking to abort the baby. She's saying she wants to abort herself. So if that was
Yeah,
the
that's
case,
true. That's a good one. You're not saying you want to abort the baby. You're saying you want to abort yourself.
Well, the Bible says that the wife belongs to the husband and the husband belongs to the wife. So.
Oh, no. Good thing I'm not married. So we can tell these pro-choicers, the body inside your body is not your body. You guys like that?
Yeah.
The unborn baby is separate from the woman's body. The unborn child has her own unique genetic fingerprint, develops a separate brain and central nervous system, can have a different blood type, can be a different gender. The body inside of the woman's body is not her body. Do you have 2 brains, 4 hands, 2 hearts, 4 eyes? See how irrational they are? My body, my choice is a modern myth. It is contradicted by both science and religion, and contrary to both faith and reason, is a rhetorical slogan designed to justify the destruction of preborn human beings. The fetus is a parasite. This one's a little weird. What do you think? I think that's right. Said at Comic-Con.
Well, that was given to me at Comic-Con, and what I saw there was how human life has been so devalued in this evolutionary, atheistic, self-conceited philosophy that is upon America, that for a person to say that the life inside the womb is a parasite, I just saw in that person a total lack of value toward life. And that's what we're dealing with in America today.
Anybody else?
Our bodies are geared, if we have any sickness or anything that is abnormal in our body, it tries to push it out, like miscarriages. So it can't be a parasite because the nature takes its course. And it seems that's a home for the baby for the 9 months that.
That's a really good point. I like that.
You should get a sucker.
This is me. Oh yeah, you do. You totally do. Well, answer that was good. Anybody it was a good answer.
Jeff.
Everybody.
Jeff wants one.
You have to answer.
I guess yours wasn't good,
back
Jeff.
there.
I know that. I was just
So this is me. This statement is highly ignorant. The unborn baby is not a parasite because she is of the same species. So a parasite latches on to something that's a different species. It's host, they call it. So apparently the mother is the host as the mother and gives stem cells to repair the mother's heart. Unlike a parasite which only takes nutrition from the host. So actually an unborn baby gives nutrition to the mother, and it's like a mutual relationship. It's not parasite by any means.
It's symbiotic.
The world dehumanizes people in order to justify their destruction.
I have a question. I'm afraid I'll forget it, so I've
Okay.
been waiting. I heard the other day that, like, the liquid that goes through the mother doesn't go through the baby. Like
Yeah.
like the mother, like if she drinks or something like that, it doesn't go through the
That's
baby.
the placenta's job, is to filter out anything that's bad. And so if you don't believe that there's a God and that we're just some random chance process, I personally think that it's amazing that the mother has this placenta attached to the fetus, and the placenta only filters the nutrients to the baby and filters out anything that's bad back into the mother's bloodstream. So that's amazing, huh?
So is that?
It's true, but I mean, she can't go and like booze it up.
Yeah, I just want to know, but that's true though. Huh?
To a certain extent, yeah. Well, that's the placenta's job. So, job designed by God. Anybody else? Yes, Joe.
But I've heard over and over again that doctors recommend not drink during pregnancy because it can affect the baby,
Yeah,
especially drugs.
Yeah.
So I might be misunderstanding. I hear a contradiction there.
No, the placenta's job is to filter out anything that's bad, and it'll filter it to the woman's blood.
Right.
But like you said, a woman can't just like go and booze it up, or else I guess the placenta can't keep all that.
But the same as smoking.
Yeah.
I mean,
but if a woman eats like burgers and all that, then
Your liver is supposed to filter that out from your blood, but if you drink, you're going to get drunk. It's the same thing for the placenta and the child. You can overwhelm anything.
you deserve.
Anna, I didn't hear what you said. Anna.
He said the liver's job is to filter out just like the placenta, but if you get drunk, or if you drink, you're going to get drunk. So it's kind of the same thing with the...
But you can overdo it,
Yeah.
so the liver can't work right.
Right, you can over...
But, question, repair the mother's heart.
Yeah.
Give stem cells to repair the mother's heart.
Yeah, did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't
So-
hear her comment, I'm sorry.
She didn't know that the baby actually gives stem cells to repair the mother's heart. So it's not a parasite, yes.
Why does the mother's heart need repairing?
Everyone's heart needs repairing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
I thought
what happens.
Jesus.
Because she's getting nutrition to the baby, and then baby gives it back to her. That's just science.
That's God's love.
So when babies just
Wow,
ripped from her,
creation.
you don't think that's
God's
bad?
love.
And I heard the mother's immune system spikes up where they don't get sick as much. I
Yeah,
heard that.
so it's definitely a natural, something natural kicks in.
Actually, you brought up something that reminded me of my two friends that had arthritis from birth. When they were pregnant with their babies, their arthritis all but disappeared. And after they gave birth, like 18 months later, then it started to come back. But they had a lot of relief from their arthritis while they were pregnant.
Do you want a lollipop? Like that's a good one.
For those of you who don't know, one of the ICR speakers, Randy,
Galuza.
what's his name?
Galuza.
Randy Galuza has written a book. He was a medical doctor. He wrote a book about this very subject. It's probably out here in the Creation Museum that you can get and read about this miracle of birth and what goes on in the womb and how the mother is supported by the child and vice versa. It's a marvelous book. He spoke at Shadow Mountain last year when we saw him over there, and he conveyed that. There it is right there,
This
in
is
his
good,
image right
yeah.
there. That is an awesome book.
Yeah.
If you can grab hold of that.
And they have a DVD on that too?
And they have a DVD on that too.
He wants the whole bag. As long as someone says, this human is a parasite, all of a sudden we can kill him? You're saying, this is a parasite, now we can kill him? What if I just call you a parasite? Is it okay to go ahead and dismember you without anesthesia? The fetus is just a clump of cells. Well, we saw that that was not true. This objection is merely a tactic for dehumanizing that which is clearly human, so that the conscience is less moved and bothered when you murder the child. So is a corpse that's been dead for a few... Okay. The fetus is a clump of cells. So is the corpse that's been dead for a few days. Death is the irreversible cessation of the body's ability to function as a... We don't need to go into that. If the fetus were merely a collection of isolated cells, which cell undergoing is its own developmental process? If left alone, wouldn't each cell develop into its own separate fetus? So it's just really dumb. It's a clump of cells. All right, here's a tough one. What about abortion in the case of rape? What do you guys think?
Wasn't the baby's fault.
Wasn't the baby's fault, JD?
You don't punish someone else for somebody else's crime.
You don't punish someone for someone else's crime.
Every life is precious in God's sight.
Every life is precious. So when we talk about what about in the case of rape, and a lot of times someone will give you a really emotional story, just remember, what is abortion? Because they want to take you off track and deter you from the real issue.
Always murder.
Hope.
You're kind of being as bad as the person who raped you because you're murdering your child.
Yeah, so bouncing off what Hope said, rape and abortion are wrong for the same reason. They're both violent acts of aggression upon other people's bodies. So in other words, two wrongs do not make a right. Abortion never helps or comforts the victim of rape. It helps the rapist. How often do you think the rapist thought, she'll just get an abortion? Rape and abortion are wrong for the same reason. They are both violent acts of aggression upon other people's bodies. Human beings who are conceived in rape should not be punished for their father's crimes. So that's what JD said. Women who are raped ought to be cared for, not victimized further by putting them through an abortion. Over 99% of all abortions have nothing to do with rape. This exception is designed to keep abortion on demand legal. Human beings conceived in rape are still human beings, and they possess human rights. In the back.
Yeah, I think Scripture calls for us to put down the rapist, not the rapist.
Yeah,
Product.
put down the rapist, not
So
the
the
product
question
of
is,
rape.
when a person brings this up, you ask them, well, have you terminated the person who was committing the rape?
Someone's taking a picture.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh. Applying pro-choice logic to everyday life. If your biological father was a rapist, you do not have a right to live. So I'm 24, if my biological father was a rapist, does that mean that I should be murdered now? There are many people who were conceived in rape, and they're pro-life advocates because they say, do I not have a right to live? In the book Victims and Victors, David Reardon interviewed 192 women who experienced pregnancy as a result of rape or incest and 55 children who were conceived through sexual assault. Nearly all women who aborted their children, remember they were raped and they aborted their children, regretted their choice. It was a high percentage. And none of those who carried the term regretted theirs. What about in the case of rape? A lot of people just like to throw that out there to keep abortion on demand legal. And you can tell them there have been studies with women who have actually carried their babies to term and they have not regretted it. So we should care. Christ calls us to care for the weak, not further traumatize them. And murder does not cancel out the rape. Life of the mother. Let's go back. What do you guys think? Have you guys heard about that? What about abortion in the case of life of the mother?
You went back a slide.
Pardon?
You went back a slide.
I did on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Because the answers are there. Life of the mother.
Very rare.
Rare? Anybody else?
Emotional argument.
I had a cousin whose wife was pregnant with a pregnancy that they wanted, but she developed cancer, and in an attempt to save her life, why they terminated the pregnancy because the growth hormones for the pregnancy were stimulating the growth hormones for the cancer. So there are some rare cases where you could really argue that there's a legitimate need for it.
Well, what I find interesting about that too, from when I
Remember, this is what we're talking about. I just want you guys to keep
Oh,
that in mind.
are you talking about a case of rape still?
No, we're talking about a case of mother's life,
Yeah.
but we're talking about abortion and murder. So keep that in mind when we talk about this. Alma.
As a mother, I would gladly give my life to my child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the true heart of it.
Right.
And Tim Tebow, they said that the mom was going to die. I can't remember the story. So you should terminate the child. Well, they ended up just praying, give it to God, and Tim Tebow came out a strong man, and now he has an amazing platform.
So abortion is intentionally killing a human being. And there is nothing out there where this type of abortion, going inside a woman's uterus, dismembering a child, will save the mother's life. So you're murdering a child, and that's wrong in God's eyes. There's been, I didn't put it up here because I couldn't find the source, but there's been pediatrics and doctors who say, in all of my 35 years, I've never known one instance where this type of abortion was needed to save the mother's life. Life of the mother. Neither should we allow bank robberies, kidnappings, terrorist attacks to save the life of the mother. You see, abortion has lost its meaning in our society today, but when we put in other crimes, you see, wait a minute, what are we actually talking about? The truth is that abortion has much to do with saving the life of a pregnant mother as a bank robbery does. An intentional abortion is a self-conscious decision to take the life of an unborn child that is never necessary to save the life of the mother. Ectomic pregnancy occurs when an embryo, so this is when they say life of the mother. They're either talking about an ectomic pregnancy when an embryo is growing outside of the mother's uterus, And because science has come so far, doctors have now succeeded to transfer the embryo from outside of the uterus into the uterus. Sick, leukemia. I read up on this. The doctors will recommend abortion if a woman has cancer, but not to save her life, but to prevent litigation, because if they treat her and the baby dies, they don't want to be responsible for that. And then they'll tell her, well, the baby's going to die anyway. And there's been cases where the baby has not died. So, going inside of a woman's uterus and taking out a child, dismembering the child, there's no justification for that. And extreme cases do not justify mass murder. What time is it? 7:37. We're going to take a 7-minute break.
All right.
We need to do breaks. We can keep going.
7 minutes.
7:30.